All right. Everybody, good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining on time. For those of you who join live, I guess there will be lots more people coming during the session, or wanting to watch this online as a replay. But first of all, I'd like to welcome you on behalf of the Institute for Mergers, Acquisitions and Alliances, as well as the Association for Mergers and Acquisitions in Singapore. But we also care about what's happening, obviously, in terms of M&A in the region and in the wider context of M&A globally. It's a pleasure to welcome you as participants, but also that our speakers have agreed to share insights with current trends and what they see happening in the market. I think we looked at Vietnam as a country that is very promising from a point of view of population for lots of industries of interest, and has good opportunities and offers great opportunities also within the country to do M&A locally as well. As many of you may know, the ones that I know personally here in the call, I've been to Vietnam so many times, and it's a shame I can't be with you physically this afternoon. I'm calling in from Germany, and we have snow this morning. Therefore, welcome everybody who's live. Why are we dialing in live? By the way, in the chat, if you'd like, post your LinkedIn profile so you can get connected. Also, obviously, connect to the speakers if you like. That's why we're also doing this, apart from having a lively discussions with you and our distinguished speakers. So therefore, thank you very much for joining this afternoon live, and for those that watch the video later, thank you very much for watching this. We hope it's an interesting session that you will benefit from a lot. So let's dive into the first session. It's a pleasure to welcome Yusuke Ujima from Nihon M&A Center to give us a perspective from company acquirers in Vietnam that have been so active for so many years. And I find it also from a global perspective extremely interesting how Japanese companies pursue merger and acquisitions in general are very much different from companies, in the West. So how I've experienced Japanese companies in Vietnam that, invest also a lot in getting to know the country, getting to know the people, spending a lot more time on the ground first before considering making an acquisition, maybe even building relationships, building trust in an acquisition that really helps you carry through the process. It's fascinating to see, and therefore thank you very much, Yusuke, for joining us and sharing your perspective on why Japanese companies are interested in Vietnam, what the opportunities are. The floor is yours. Thank you, Yusuke.
Hi, good afternoon. Can you hear?
Yes, we can hear.
Okay. Can you hear now?
Yes, we can hear you, Mr. Yusuke.
Okay, so thank you very much for all the arrangement for the IMAA, and at the same time, this is a very good opportunity for us to talk about the Vietnamese market from the angle of the Japanese companies. So even though the just 10 minutes presentation, we hope it be very beneficial for all the participants. Yeah. So maybe please next page. So let me introduce ourselves very briefly. So Nihon M&A Center is a Japanese firm. We are a leading company in M&A advisory sectors. And since our foundation in 1991, we have closed more than 10,000 M&A deals so far. And we are really specialized in the SME and the mid-cap sectors. And we have a 7 domestic office in mainly Japan. And we have 5 office in Southeast Asia, of course, including Vietnam. And we are listed in Tokyo Stock Exchange, and number of our employees now around 1,100. Yeah. So next page, please. And in terms of our presence in Southeast Asia, actually almost 10 years ago, we entered into the Singapore first. And after that, we start to expand our business in Vietnam as well, Indonesia and Malaysia and Thailand. So now we have 5 entities in Southeast Asia and together with more than 50 cross-border M&A specialists so far. And in terms of our track record for the last 5 to 6 years, we closed around 60 deals in Southeast Asia. And the Vietnamese market, we closed 12 deals last 5 to 6 years. And as I mentioned a bit, we are more focusing on the mid-cap and the SME. So this is for your information for our deal size. And again, since we are a Japanese company, most of the buyers for the deals in Southeast Asia, basically a Japanese company, including both private and public sectors. Okay, next page. So let me focusing on the market in Vietnam. And again, we try to focusing on the deals between Japan and Vietnam. So this is a kind of selected transaction between Japan and Vietnam. And last year, roughly 20 deal plus between Japan and Vietnam. And this is some of the selected one. And maybe we can say, we can highlight the 3 points. First one is basically the compare with maybe Europe or US, there are fewer large scale transactions. And based on our research, I think around, average deal size over the past 5 years is around 30 million USD. So we can say, yeah, this is a kind of lower market, lower mid-cap market or mid-cap market, especially in Vietnam. And another things is like, actually that this graph, I mean the right side of this table, there's mentioned the tags about the deal type. So many Japanese company looking for the majority type of the deals in Vietnam. At the same time, we can see the many minority stake acquisitions as well. And in addition to that, many Japanese company enter into the Vietnam market with a minority stake first, and then eventually they start to increase the portion of the shares so that they can get the majority control. So, for example, the from the bottom. I think Asuka Pharmaceutical, actually they acquired Hata for last year, I mean 2025 February. But before this transaction, Asuka invested to them around 20 to 30%, almost 3 to 4 years ago. Then last year, they acquired the majority. So this is a very typical the method or process for the Japanese company enter into the Vietnamese market. And last point I want to highlight is about the sectors. To be honest, the most of the Japanese company, I mean, any sectors, including food, on beverage, logistics, and various type of the manufacturing or IT or healthcare, many Japanese company looking for the many sectors. So we cannot see that there's a particular sectors Japanese company looking for, but the type of the business, in terms of the type of the business, we can say the many trading business, distributor business are the kind of the top target from Japan because they want to penetrate to the local market. So that is a kind of very brief trend from the Japanese perspective. Okay, next page, please. And the reason why the many Japanese company looking for the market in Vietnam is basically this is a kind of the highlight. So I think as you may know, the Japanese market is getting shrinking due to the population decrease. So many Japanese company try to expand their business to the overseas, and especially the Vietnam market is quite the high growth, and the market is getting bigger. So we can see the many Japanese company try to expand their business to the Vietnam. At the same time, the second point, due to the geographic and the political issues, many Japanese companies try to diversify the supply chain, not only in Vietnam, of course, but also other countries such as Malaysia or Indonesia. but especially the Vietnam, maybe related to the semicon or the electronics and some of the manufacturing sector, including food, we can see the many trend from the Japan side. And third point is actually in Japan, the again, because of the decrease of the population, many workers from Vietnam or even Indonesia, the number of the foreign worker from Vietnam, Indonesia has been increasing. So try to solve the workforce gap. That's kind of perspective also very important for the Japanese company. And together with that, still the Japanese companies, competitive technologies and high advanced the technology still can help for the many company in Southeast Asia, including Vietnam. So they try to make the tech ecosystem to drive the innovation in Vietnam as well. And nowadays, in Vietnam, we understand last 5 years, 10 years growing very sharply. And we can feel not only the potential at this moment, but many Japanese company try to make it realize the proven profit. So M&A, merger and acquisition is a kind of very common strategic way for the Japanese. And of course, Vietnam is can be the one of the gateway to the ASEAN market. So yeah, the Vietnam is one of the hottest place for the Japanese. Okay, next page, please. So last slide from me is just future outlook. Basically, since we are trying to cover the many transaction between Japan and Vietnam. I think last few, maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago, basically the investor or buyer from Japan is only large corporation. But nowadays, even looking at the last few years, many Japanese mid-market leaders or even Japanese SME start to enter into this market through the merger and acquisitions. So we feel there are more demands, more many company and try to enter into the Vietnamese market. So it will be very, very good opportunity for the Vietnamese company. Then second point is this is not only in Vietnam, but yeah, we can see the many succession-driven M&A. So we understand the first generation of the business owner in Vietnam now start to think about the retirement or and they don't have a successors. So we can see the many M&A consideration because of that. At the same time, still the many Vietnamese company trying to expand the business to the overseas or even domestic market. So to do so, I think the strategic way, the strategic growth M&A is also very important for them. So we can see the many transaction Japanese company can be the partner for them. So that's why there are many transaction with minority stake deals as well. And basically, the last point is from Japanese companies' angle, basically they want to expand the business together and they want to create a value together by leveraging each other's strengths and the resource. So we hope the M&A transaction between Vietnam companies or any company in over the world can achieve the sustainable and the long-term growth for the both companies or both countries as well. Yeah. So yeah, this is a very brief presentation from me. And if you have any question, please feel free to ask me or even after this seminar. Yeah. Thank you very much for your time. Yeah.
Thank you, Yusuke, for giving us a snapshot of the reasons why Japanese companies look into buying companies in Vietnam. Thank you. Any questions from the audience? I mean, you can either, put us in chat or I think raise your hands or otherwise of interacting, or any comments from any of the other speakers. Let's have a look into this. I mean, for me, I maybe give it a start. It's interesting to see that, Japanese companies are going in with minority stakes, again, from other, players globally, they sometimes have the tendency to say, I want it all right away, I want to, own it, and shape it. Yosuke, can you, maybe explain from your perspective, what's the mentality of Japanese acquirer and investor like? I mean, how to work with them. Maybe, Vietnamese sellers will be also interested in learning, like, how do I need to work with them, to get them excited and
Yeah, yeah.
to get them
I
to
think
invest.
Yeah, thank you very much for your questions. I think the most of the transaction we engaged last few years, as I mentioned, there are some majority stake acquisition and minority stake acquisitions. But basically, the from the Vietnamese company's angle, they also would like to expand the business together with the Japanese company, and especially for the manufacturing sectors, the sometimes the for the business owner in Vietnam, they have a challenges to improve the productivity or efficiency and technologies. So after the transaction, of course, the Japanese company put many resource or knowledge or technologies to solve that. So usually the from Vietnamese business owner expecting those high technology or advanced technologies to expand together with the Japanese. So we can see the very friendly and for create value transaction. We can see a lot.
Thank you. There's a question from the audience, Gideon Teo. Thank you for posting this in the chat. Is Vietnamese regulatory or government compliance or requirements challenging?
Oh yes, yeah, we can see. I mean, it depends, of course, but the sometimes I mean, the depending on the sectors, we can see the some difficulties. But the I mean, it's up to the maybe structure or a scheme. Maybe we try to solve it, or based on the. I mean, usually, of course, a Japanese company do the due diligence. So compliance issues, regulatory issues, we usually find out. But from, I mean, what. One of our strengths from the Nihon M&A Center is because we already have a many transaction track record in Vietnam. So we try to make it, I mean, figure out in a quite advanced stage so that the later say stage, if the Japanese buyer find out, I think it's very hard to proceed. So yeah, based on our knowledge and based on together with a Vietnamese partner, we try to make it the some solution. And so far, yeah, the we feels still there are many demand the Japanese company want to proceed even though we face many difficulties.
Okay, thank you, Yusuke, and also Chung for chipping in into the chat. And I guess, like, we'll snap up the question later. Thank you for mentioning that from a Japanese perspective, how important due diligence is, and what it is for. It's not just checking boxes and checklists and doing the ordinary stuff, but really finding out, like, are there any specific challenges that we would run into, and do we find Vietnam overly complex versus, other destinations in the world. I think, governments can be complicated all around the world. But let's look into this later as well. Any other questions from the audience on the Japanese perspective? And I think the exit question from Gideon, I think I'm not sure, like, Yusuke, Japanese companies are not necessarily looking at doing an exit after an acquisition, right? I'm not sure how, vibrant and invested the Japanese private equity sector is in Vietnam. Any financial investors that you work with, or is it largely strategic investors?
Uh, we can say I think almost more than 90% is a strategic Japanese buyers.
Mm,
So basically they don't consider about exit. Yeah, they
mm,
basically they try to expand together with
mm, mm.
Vietnamese companies. Yeah.
Yeah. But let's follow the question like what about exits from Vietnamese investments and with others later in this call. I mean, there's other speakers that can also answer this. Thank you so much, Yusuke, for joining us this morning. Also, like everybody in the call or later, reach out to him. I mean, I'm sure you're happy to connect and interact and answer any questions that may pop up later or that you'd rather want to ask in a one-on-one environment than in a public webinar. So thank you very much for your input to today's session. So let's look at the next presentation and next speaker. So it's a pleasure having Chung Sek from Baker McKinsey, and I think Chung, we've met so many years back. I can't even remember, that's so long, but that's me. And thank you very much for joining us this morning, making a contribution to what you see, how investments work and do not work, maybe in Vietnam. I mean, let's face it, not everything works perfectly, but with your help, in investments and M&A deals, there's a higher likelihood that it will work. So thank you, Chung, for your contributions this afternoon.
Thank you very much for organizing, Chris, and for everyone to attend. Since Gideon started the ball rolling with let's get to the chase and be blunt, and is it challenging and difficult? The short answer is yes. So Vietnam, all considered, is a youngish, modernizing economy. Legal framework keeps growing for good reasons, to be fair. At the same time, in terms of implementation, application, consistency, clarity, so those are issues. Having said this, as the Yusuke has presented, I think those in the audience would know that Vietnam still represents growth. It's a growth market. I think the leaders have great vision. Implementation can be an issue, but still it's a growth story. So I like to believe that with this high level of compliance, high level of complexity, do work with good service providers, let us make good self or other people that you like working with to navigate these kind of complexities. So that makes questions on exits. I agree with Yusuke. I think largely we see strategics exiting to larger PEs. That whole fantasy of IPOs didn't quite transpire over the past decade or so. But in recent times, you can read this in the news. There are a lot of companies that are also looking at the possibility of IPOs and these things. Okay, so my name is Chung. Go to the next slide. So my name is Chung. I'm Singaporean, and I'm a partner with Baker McKenzie. I'm based in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam, and I've been here since 1999. I assist the foreign investors, whether by way of FDI or M&A transactions. There are quite a lot of slides here. I'm not going to go on each and every one. The slides will be shared after. I gather as well that within the audience, there are folks that will be very experienced about Vietnam. There are folks that may be just taking a look. So I hope that in my presentation, there's something for everyone. Next slide. Next. Next slide. Next slide. So quick word on geopolitics. Yeah, it definitely has a lot of influence around the world, and Vietnam included, lots of up and downs. Clearly, no one likes uncertainty. Having said this, I think the Vietnam government, the business community, the clients that we work with have just one thing in mind: keep going forward, adapt. And I think we see this in particular in the Vietnam government, whether it's choosing or maintaining the leadership, whether in terms of visions and new plans and ideas, you just see them going forward. Like we all know, you can't predict what a US president or any world leader would think of the next morning. So the best thing you can do is manage domestically what you are looking to do. So with that, I'll just read that fortunately, we see growth, we see trends in our sectors, whether it's healthcare, education, supply chain, etc. I will quickly mention energy. For those that follow the news, that's a bit problematic. Investors have been giving a lot of feedback and asking for solutions to the government. And I hope that the government is going to address the energy issues. Next slide. Okay, I think next slide. Next slide. So this next few slides, although it's sort of under that category of foreign direct investments, I still think it's necessary to talk through it a bit. And they do have implications for M&A as well. Okay, I mean, you can see the few key points here, just in case there are any questions or doubt. Vietnam is open for investment. Let's be blunt. They need the capital, they need the money, they need job creation. It's all good stuff. Okay, and Vietnam really wants to move up the value chain. They want to upskill the workforce. So simply, visions, aspirations, desires are in the right direction. Okay. Having said that, because of all the complexities, the times, the approvals, uncertainty, for anyone that's looking at Vietnam for the first time, please budget time, budget cost, budget effort, please budget some legal fees. But at the same time, I'd like to believe that we do this right, and you are going to get your return investments. Okay. Usual question is, does everything need a JV partner? The sector's open. And the short answer is that, yeah, but a lot of things are 100% open for foreign investments. Of course, anything in manufacturing, real estate, hotels, various service companies. Having said that, there are JV requirements, there are conditions in a number of sectors, and I'll touch on this in a bit. Next slide. Okay, just broadly speaking, the legal framework. As you have noticed on the sort of investment laws being one of the key laws there, the new one was just issued. I'm not going to go into it in detail. I'll just say that it is more geared towards FDI. It's meant to make it a more streamlined. It's meant to recognize that there are certain desired industries that government wants to fast track. So you can say that those are steps in the right direction. However, I will also add, I'll believe it when I see it in terms of implementation. As far as M&A is concerned, I would say that investment law doesn't change the landscape too much. Okay. What is important also is that the category of above, that grouping of above all the trade agreements. Vietnam joined the WTO in 2007, very important, because that's where you had a lot of the market access restrictions drop, but also new ones introduced. And these commitments, notwithstanding that it's like almost ancient back in 2007, is more or less treated like a Bible by the investment authorities in Vietnam. Notwithstanding that you can see there's a whole lot of other trade agreements that Vietnam is entered into. I'll give an illustration later. Okay. I think for the bucket on the right, just the key points, and I'll touch on a bit more. M&A approval, merger filings, just remember this, and every transaction in Vietnam, there's a third party. It's not just the buyer and the seller. The government and the approvals needed is also third party, and you could budget time and effort for that. Next. Okay, next slide. Okay. In the previous slide, there's one keyword there, that there are conditions, there are restrictions applicable to foreign investors. Here you can just see very quickly some of those and some of the sectors that are restricted. I'll pick one or two as examples. For example, drug distribution. Okay, drug import is allowed. Drug distribution is not allowed for foreign investors. Okay. And that has not been lifted with more up-to-date trade agreements. Then let's look at advertising. Advertising required a joint venture with a licensed Vietnamese advertising company that's under 2007 WTO commitments. With the CPTPP, certainly a more up-to-date trade agreement, 100% is allowed. All right, and we have gotten 100% ownership. Foreign ownership in an advertising company. This is relevant for both FDI and M&A because it could be that sectors that you want to acquire could have foreign investment restrictions and conditions. However, not everything is rosy. I'll just say that under the CPTPP, there is a condition that was supposed to be lifted, and that's the economic needs test for retail shops. Okay, briefly put, it's a discretionary right for authorities to say, oh, maybe we're not going to let you open up your second or third retail outlet. That is supposed to drop with CPTPP. However, the draft regulation to implement that has yet to be issued. So the point here is that always look out for whether or not the sector you're buying into has these foreign investment restrictions or conditions, and see whether or not they have been lifted or adjusted with more up-to-date trade agreements. I'll also quickly mention, because some of you that know Vietnam are aware that there are well-known foreign investors, so to speak, pharmacy chains, all right? I'll just say that how that has been structured, I'm not talking about that company in particular, but in general, how that has been structured is through layering of companies that enable a foreign company, a foreign investor, so to speak, to be regarded as a domestic investor. Next slide. Next slide. I'm also mindful of time, so I'm going quickly through this. Next slide. Okay, so this is the part on regulatory approvals. Like I said, every deal that we do, there is a third party. What's the difference between merger filing and M&A approval? Merger filing, merger control, that will go to the competition authority under the Ministry of Industry and Trade. Okay, there's phase 1 assessments, and hopefully we don't get to phase 2. All in all, in terms of budgeting time, I will say that this can add another, say 2 or 3 months. Okay, if you clear phase 1. So please keep that in mind. And I think merger filing gets continually more than does. M&A approval goes through the investment authority. Okay, so it's a different one. It also and it comes under the Ministry of Finance. It's a bit more predictable, but also takes time. Question, can you do both in parallel? The short answer is yes. Okay, next. Next slide. Next. I'm not going to go into details here, but I'll just point out that this is what I call a sub-license. After you're incorporated, and if you do something like, retailing, trade-related, you're supposed to get a business license that's issued by the Ministry of Industry and Trade. And I'll say that this takes time, unfortunately. A lot of feedback has been given to the government. I'm hoping that they would sort this out and make it faster, or at least follow their own laws. Next. Next slide. Next. Okay, stop. I'll make this my last slide. Previous to that one, you might have glanced that we're talking about the different corporate forms. For those not familiar with Vietnam, mainly the limited liability company and the joint stock company. The way that they are managed, the way decisions are made are a bit different between the two. So whenever you do a deal in Vietnam, and you're looking at the target, you're thinking, what percentage I think of shares you're trying to get in there. All right. Now do note there are 2 different corporate forms and the way that be treated and the impact on the deal could be quite different. Having said that, we can convert LLC to a JSC easily. Anyways, this is just my last slide. And just I'll bring back to something that's familiar to everyone doing deals. This is a typical M&A step. And I'll just say that for Vietnam, it's largely similar to what you guys would be accustomed to. All right, identify the target, commercial terms, term sheet, do the due diligence, legal compliance, finance, commercial, negotiations, and all that. And then that bit about getting government approval, budgeting time. Okay, so I think I will stop at this point and happy to take questions.
Thank you, Chung, for preparing a more extensive presentation that we will share also if we can, and that may also stir additional questions. But I think we had one on complexity, regulatory environment that you already addressed a bit. Any other questions from the audience? Either open your microphone or put it into the chat. So we're just watching the chat for a minute. Maybe in the meantime, I can ask you a question, Chung, if you don't mind. If you think of all these years where Vietnam, yes, wants the investment, and the government looks probably more favorable at it anyway. Has that changed a bit over time? What's the current situation, given obviously the economic situation in terms of energy prices, tariffs, going this way or that way, Vietnam as a manufacturing hub or not? What is the current feelings on the ground, and investors look at this?
It's going to be the usual, the good, not so great, and slightly weird. Okay, I mean, just to be clear, Vietnam government, they want foreign investors. They need the capital. They need the money. They're open for business. So let's just start with that positive note. All right, and you can see it as well that they are trying to make sure that their population and economy escapes the middle income trap. All right. They're trying to go for innovation, semiconductor, high-tech stuff. But don't forget good old agriculture. Vietnam sells a lot of durians to China that is good money too. Okay, they are investing on infrastructure. All right, and they know that they need to continually upskill their workforce. And in fact, those in the tech industry, they do come to Vietnam because Vietnam's got good software engineers. And Vietnam is going to introduce English, I think, at very early levels in the schools. Okay, so I would say that directionally, all good, all sound, and therefore we have the opportunities that businesses and investors are looking at. Having said that, yeah, the challenges around sub-licenses, how data is managed, consistency of law. This authority say yes, different authorities say no. That kind of sort of lack of consistency, not always so clear, it exists. And I think it's just going to be an ongoing effort that people, they realize that it's just like cutting your hair, you're just going to keep cutting your hair. I think that's just going to be reality. But if you don't mind, I'll just pick up on this question here, because I think this is interesting. Post-acquisition, integration and stuff. I know the topic is M&A, which is difficult, challenging, interesting all in itself. But at the same time, I think we always say that, dating and getting married is hard. But after that, to keep the marriage going and produce kids and goods and services and build a household, that's even harder. Okay? So you're right. I think the successful deals that we've seen, the post-acquisition, integration, managing that, different cultures, different procedures, SOPs. Those that do it right, you can see it succeed. Unfortunately, we also seen those that didn't quite integrate as well, and we've seen those kinds of deals actually eventually fall. Okay, post-acquisition. Okay, yeah, I stop at this point.
Thank you so much, Chung. So I think I think we could go on forever, and I think it's fascinating, interesting. Thank you for sharing these insights. And again, I think you have your email in the presentation, and are open for additional questions coming later, or connecting. So thank you for your contribution this afternoon. Let's be mindful of time, so I'd like to move on to the next presentation, as by Tian Din, partner, head of corporate finance from KPMG Vietnam. So thank you very much for joining and discussing some of the opportunities that you recently see. So I would just pass on to you the floors as you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, for being here with us, with me today. So my name is Tian. I'm a partner at KPMG Vietnam. I leading the corporate finance team. We are market leader in M&A and valuation. Myself, I started out as a research analyst, and then doing a bit of time in the public equity fund, then settling in investment banking M&A for the last 15 years. So I've been working through quite a lot of deals, hundreds, more than hundreds of deals, mostly on the sales side, where I have Vietnamese company for fundraising, or for a control deal where they have the whole company selling the whole company. So today, probably I would like to walk through a bit on the landscape M&A for the last few years, a bit of valuation and spec, and then a bit of what's going on, hopefully from our view, what's the key theme this year, 2026, going forward. So that's the agenda for today. Could you go to this slide? All right, let's move to the next slide. Please clear. All right, so a bit of a history. So if you look at this slide, right, so obviously we got a peak in 2021, where both in terms of volume and value, and then we have seen a decline then, and we only exception in 2024, a bit of pickup in the value. If you look at, we have to divide that. Obviously, we got a peak in during COVID time, where a lot of deals acquisition financed by cheap money. And then another significant period where between 24 and 25 last year, a little bit more dry in terms of volume, in terms of value as well. So it's a little bit different from in Vietnam in that aspect, different from other markets where we have seen pick up in 2025. But Vietnam, actually, we have seen a bit of slower in terms of recovery. And probably one of the key reasons is that we have a bit of internal political uncertainty, so that costs a bit, invest a bit of cost us, to invest or spend money. So, but with that in mind, we probably see that 2025 last year is probably the bottom of volume and value. So, and plus with some of the positive, recovery and some of the momentum or activities that we see in the last maybe a couple of months, then hopefully that we point to a bit of recovery in 2026. So if you look at the average deal size, average deal size start to pick up. I recall 10 years ago in Vietnam, where we have deal like 10 and 15 million US dollars is already been big, but gradually we have seen a much bigger size, like 3x. If we look at 2025, 35.5 is the average deal size that we were able to have track with the number. So obviously the deal size increase by our company is getting bigger in terms of revenue, in terms of profit, in terms of size. But another factor also contributes, a big part is that we've seen a lot more controlled deals in the last few years than the typical minority and fundraising. And obviously with the option of a lot of PE activities, then most of the deals go to strategic deal where investor would love to acquire control stake, so that play a big part in driving the deal size increase a little bit. All right, so let me move to the next slide. Okay, so if you're curious about which investor, which country play a big part in investing in Vietnam, so typically we got countries coming from the East Asia. The typical used to be Japan, Korea, and from South Asia we got the Singapore, and Thailand, and then lately we have seen the Chinese investors start to pick up. We see a lot of activities from China. So that and then obviously we got the local corporates who also play a dominant, significant part in investing in the country. So if you look at Singapore as one typical example, they're the home of the multinational corporation, and the home of a lot of private equities and VC, and so so that it's like a proxy for a lot of investment to Vietnam. And then lately we've seen a pickup in from Japanese investment. I think we got a speaker from Nihon also mentioned that a lot of interest coming from Japan to Vietnam right now. So I think what we have observed the last few years, after Japanese investors focus more on inbound investment. So last 1 or 2 years, so now it's time for them to get out and do more outbound. So Vietnam as always one of the traditional country where Japanese investor like besides Thailand, Indonesia, then we start to see a pickup from Japanese investor into Vietnam. And then I think if you look at the local group, so one of the local buyers is always very active in the real estate sectors where basically it is more for local players. So whenever we see properties pick up, then we see a lot of investment activities from the local group, and with a lot of investment, with a lot of incentive from the government to promoting the private sector for the last year and this year going forward. So we hope that going forward there will be more action or activities done by the local buyers towards M&A. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so moving to sectors. Beside the typical financials and real estate, it's also, not surprisingly, it's also the biggest component of the economy in Vietnam. So a lot of investment goes to financial or real estate, but beside that, we also have seen some industry or some sectors start to pick up. So I could name it like healthcare. We have seen quite a lot of activities goes to healthcare in 2024, 2025. Not surprisingly, because obviously with the shift of the investor in terms of mindset towards more resilient sectors than healthcare as one of the typical sector that got attention. Again, and that's not the Vietnam exception case. We also see that elsewhere in Asia or in South Asia where a lot of investment goes to healthcare area. On the opposite side, last few years, not a lot of investment goes to consumer. I think one of the notable trend of observation we have seen that 2024, 2025 not a great year for consumption. We've seen consumption level kind of been shrinking. So obviously, as a consumer company in the sectors, and the sector not doing well, you don't doing well, and that's why you might not receive a lot of attention or interest from the investor. But again, then once we track that consumption start to pick up, then we have seen a renewed interest from investor in the sector, and always, particularly when we at the level of 5,000 USD, 5,000 USD per capita, which is a threshold where a lot of people see that the spending will increase towards a lot of subsectors, and so we see a pickup in terms of demand, particularly from investors towards the consumer in general. All right, so let move to the next slide, please. Okay, I will spend some time talking about valuation. The valuation is always a tricky thing, when we talk about valuation, particularly valuing company in a bid on a transaction. So Vietnam always stand out in not a great way that toward investor that perception why they tend to think that Vietnamese founders or promoters tend to ask for a bit of premium over peers in other countries, particularly in the South Asia region. I think one of the reasons why we kind of justify the premium is because Vietnam always in terms of our growth rate, we always have the highest growth rate in the region. But sometimes if whether we get able to translate the growth rate of GDP country into company specific growth rate or into sector growth rate, sometimes not that easy. It always depends on the particular company's particular performance. So it happened that why the country might have a quite high GDP growth rate, but some company, particularly I just mentioned the consumer companies the last few years. So it's unfortunate that it doesn't turn out that way. So it's a mismatch between high expectation in terms of growth rate and then the actual performance. So that leads to a bit of a gap in terms of expectations of pricing from the seller, and then we got the buyer view, on what's the right price that you pay. So it's always been that perception for the last few years, but lately we start to see a bit of toleration towards pricing expectation, right? So obviously, it backs to the volume of deals, for the last few years, we see a shrinking of volume. So if you are promoters, if you're a founder, you want to go for fundraising, you're not able to do it, you've been asking for a little bit premium, then not successfully, then I think you have a bit of, kind of lower expectation. So as an advisor, we have seen start to, that to, start to be a common ground between the buyer and the seller in terms of pricing expectation. So we used to be here, asking between 12 and 15 times the EBITDA earlier, but now probably with probably 10 to 12 times in more general terms. Some industries, some high growth company, for example, one of the deals that we just done recently, where growth still in 50% growth and very high margin company, then obviously the multiple would be justified for a meeting price level. So that and then also under the factors that also contributes to a more reasonable in terms of pricing expectation is that I think we now moving to a buyer market where investor or buyer are more cautious or more disciplined in terms of what they're going to pay. So I will explain a bit further when we move to the key theme, but it's not the seller market, it's a buyer market. Okay, moving to the next slide, please. Yeah. All right, next slide. So we summarize here a bit of some of the four big themes that we have seen and likely to happen this year and going forward. So one thing that strike out is the back to basics, where investor earlier go for top line, go for revenue growth, go for tech-enabled company, but right now, given the shift in the mindset, that they go back and pick up more, I would say, recurring, more resilient sector, not to the sexy earlier. Now, to, more resilient sectors like the healthcare type, the education type, the B2B, where cash flow, where growth is more predictable, right? So I think that what they want to look at right now. So this is that quite across the board that we see this kind of a mindset shift over from investor, particularly the finance investor. I think the second theme is the flight to equality. Again, I think a lot of investors have been burned by putting money into company with a lot of ambitions for growth and the cost the focus of the attention to profitability to market leaders so that not really pay attention. But right now it's because of the first the money pool is shrinking and the cost of financing is a bit higher. Then with that in mind, and then particularly you've been burned by a lot of your portfolio. So the focus right now just to put money into the company that you believe going to be safely, to able to return, to have a 2-3x performance, or to give you a kind of good return. So that kind of another mindset under the theme that control that dictated a lot of investor mindset lately. So that number two themes. I think number three themes that again I think I repeat earlier, I mentioned earlier that again is a buyer market with very disciplined valuation. So as advisor, earlier we used to run the process where we could collect 4 or 5 term sheet within a few months, 2-3 months. But now most processes will run a little bit longer, and investor asking a lot more question, a lot more traction to prove whether the company able to get that in a return, to get the clients that they want to claim to have, to get the profitability that they want, they claim to have. So a lot of observation of or tracking before they make the decision. So I think that the trend that what we have seen in the market. So again, earlier investor pay a lot of high valuation for the company, and now with that difficult to go back to that valuation point, a lot of investment fundraising around been we call down round, because earlier they're not able to reach the historical valuation that they've been able to pay. So a bit of down round have been happening. So So this gives investor a bit more cautious and then a bit more conservative into what type of valuation that they're willing to pay. So this is I think the third thing that we also observe, and then we think that it's going to be it is happening in the market, and not in the for short term. Definitely going to stay for a bit of a bit longer. So another third, the fourth theme there is that I think relates to the one question earlier from the audience, that has it been difficult for the last few years, particularly if you're a private equity investor, you're having a minority stake in the company. You ask the founders or the promoters to help you for exit, but we don't see a lot of exit happening, particularly in the Vietnam landscape. So a lot of deals have to go back and forth. So now hopefully we're in a better environment. So it's going to support for a better exit environment. So we see other deals will coming back to the market. So again, it's that some of the four themes that we kind of see are going to be quite going to be happening in 2026 and likely going to take place in the next couple of years. So with that, I could close my presentation, and then look forward to any questions that you might have, and feel free to ask me. Yeah?
Thank you so much for the presentation. I know everybody prepared a lot, but it's a wonderful summary of what's going on in terms of valuation and current situation. That the trends at the moment I appreciate and really enjoyed it a lot. Any questions from the audience that you'd like to see discussed here or later? The question from Vivek on, are there any updates on the divestments of state-owned enterprises? Anything you see there, Tian Min?
Okay, I think our Mr. Chin Sek already has jumped in. To be honest, I think the government is always planning for divest SOE annually every year, but the intention, my personal view, that the intention for the government to do SOE divestment getting less and less, because obviously some of the expectation is that particularly when the SOE could contribute a decent part in helping the government to kind of running the economy. So obviously that the some of the non-critical sector, yes, the government will open up for external shareholder to come in, but some of the key sector, particularly relates to the economy, that could be the government will try to have a certain control over those important sectors. Yeah.
Thank you. Being mindful of sort of time, maybe we come back to questions later. Let's move on to the next presentation. Last but absolutely not least, Lê Chuan Dong from Fin Group. So thank you very much for joining us and looking into how making deals in Vietnam and sharing your perspective.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Christopher, for having me in the webinar today. So today I would like to share with you our perspective on the key challenges and trends in the commercial diligence in Vietnam. Yeah, so I request my colleague to share on the screen. Yeah, do you see my screen? Yes. Okay. So first of all, I would like to give you a brief introduction of the Fin Group. We are the leading data tech and consulting firm in Vietnam. For the M&A, we mainly provide the commercial due diligence and the merger filing support for the stakeholder in the transactions, buy side, sell side, or the advisor, legal advisor. So we are the most active advisor to participate in the commercial diligence segments. So from our perspective, I would like to share with you the key challenge for the commercial diligence and our solution and advantage to handle this challenge. And we would like to share with you the key trends for that shift the commercial diligence assignments in Vietnam in upcoming years. Yes. Next slide, please. Yeah. So I think we have to also have few slides covering the M&A landscape in Vietnam. I think my colleague I have also discussed this in very detail. So I do not want to zoom in detail, but overall, we would like to share that the last year, 2025, we observed the strong recovery in M&A chances in Vietnam, both in terms of the transaction value and the average use side, mainly thanks to the stable macroeconomic growth and also the ample liquidity in the capital markets and the low interest rate environment. In addition, we also see the global shift to the China Plus One manufacturing, many FDI strategic investor enter the Vietnam by acquire an existing company in here to serve comparing domestic demands and also to capitalizing the tax incentive from various FTA to export globally. In addition, we also see a strong demand for the stable and green business like utility or renewable energies transactions. And in here, we also share the same view as Thang, except for the Vietnam buyer who focus more on the real estate. We also see the strong interest from Singaporean, Malaysian, Japan, and South Korea for the healthcare, utility or financial service sectors. Next slide, please. Yeah. In here, I would like to share with you some few typical deal in each key sectors that attract a lot of M&A investor. Yeah, they are including real estate, healthcare, utilities, yeah, and financial service. And also the film group, we also involved in several deals within this group. Next slide, please. Yeah, okay. So regarding the challenge for the CDD in Vietnam, we would like to share with you that the first challenge we are facing is the data availability and quality in Vietnam. As you may know, in Vietnam, we are the emerging markets. We lack of syndicated and high quality market and sectoral database in various sectors. And in addition, from the sales side, we usually receive the incomplete or biased seller data. Yeah. So this is the first challenge we are facing when handling the CDD work stream. Yes, and in order to address this point, for the film group, we have built our in-house corporate database. We have the comprehensive corporate database to cover nearly 2 million corporates established and operating in Vietnam for now. We collect this from the legal sources, Ministry of Finance, yeah. And we are allowed to collect and commercialize this kind of data in Vietnam. This data covers both financial and non-financial information of all companies in Vietnam, including, for example, the ownership or the ownership structures of key shareholders, and also the key financial of all companies in Vietnam. Besides the corporate database, we also build our own sector database. Yeah, for now we operate in Vietnam for nearly 20 years. We have built, we have covered nearly 50 key industries in Vietnam already. And beside the CDD work stream, we also provide the market research, feasibility study, and market entry advisory for foreign corporates and large local corporates. So therefore, we have accumulated the big data for various sectors in Vietnam. And this kind of data has been updated and validated every year. We are assessing the raw data sets and also to conduct in-depth discussion with the key players in the market periodically. And in addition, in order to address the data availability and quality issue, we also assess the additional or alternative data from third-party legal sources. Yeah, for example, the social data or the web traffic data or something like that. Yeah. This is the first issue we are facing. The second issue we are facing when handling the CDD is we are required to assess the market situation or conduct the competitive landscaping analysis in very niche sector or the informal sector in Vietnam. For example, in the pawn shop or the niche fintech segments, or in the waste treatment, for example, it's very niche market in Vietnam. And in this kind of sector, we see that the sectoral data or insight is not available or fragmented on the big domain. Yeah, and therefore we are facing the difficulties in estimating basic key metrics like market sizing or growth, identify the true competitive landscaping or key growth driver or insight. Yeah. So therefore, for this kind of challenge, the first one, we come back with our in-house corporate and sectoral database, because we cover a lot. We cover nearly all corporates in Vietnam, including the corporates operating in the niche market. So we have some basic financial and non-financial data of these targets. Yeah, and we also cover various niche sectors in the market research or the market entries strategy assignments for our previous clients. So we can mobilize this kind of data in the CDD assignment in this niche market. Yeah, and the key or the major task we handle is we have to conduct some kind of market survey or the in-depth interview with key stakeholders to develop our own model to forecast the market size and growth or capture the sector insight. For such kind of challenge, we are usually use the triangulated quantitative methods to double check. That means we maybe combine several methods to reach the optimal outcome. For example, top-down approach and combine with bottom-up approach. We combine with the mass quantitative survey with the in-depth interview to get the qualitative insight to double-check our outcome, for example. So this kind of approach helps us to overcome this second challenge. Yeah, the third challenge we are facing in Vietnam, especially in Vietnam, is that the seller usually provide us very aggressive key assumption or business plans. Yeah, they provide us with very rosy, sexy growth assumption and business plans. Yeah, and in many cases, they lack up limited. They lack up time series data, historical data to support, or there is no historical performance data. And in many cases, we observe the no clear or logical linkage between the market dynamic or insight we have and with the targets, key assumption or business plans. Yeah. So to handle this challenge, we have to conduct in-depth interview with the target management to fully understand their rationale behind their assumption and challenge them to assess the feasibility or reasonableness of their projections. Yeah, and we also have to mobilize our insight we have built above regarding the market assessment or competition landscaping. Yeah, and all our analysis or research are data driven. And we not only to conduct the data-driven analysis, we have to go out to conduct the discussion with the key stakeholder in the market, including the key competitors or supplier or customer. Or in many cases, we have to consult with the authorities in the ministry or central bank or conduct the monthly shopping to double check what we receive from the seller regarding their key assumption and business plans. And in addition, we usually have to conduct the benchmarking with the key players in the market or compare with the regional peers, yeah, in ASEAN or the similar markets globally to double check. Yeah. So this kind of procedures have us to have the concrete view of the target outlook and reasonable assumptions about their business plans. And in many cases, we have to advise our clients to revise the key assumption and business plans. And as you may know, in the due diligence assignments, our CDD team work very closely with the financial tax due diligence and also the valuation team. And our CDD findings help them a lot to update or revise their valuation. And this provides the basis for the buy side to bring to the table to negotiate to the sell side. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I mean, like, I think it's really interesting to see how you focus on the commercial side of it, right? I mean, we're fortunate, you know, that we had a speak on legal, and obviously we looked at a little bit valuation and financial, but I think it's very important, you know, that you stress analyzing, understanding the market. And I particularly liked a lot that you mentioned that, you know, that buyers obviously present rather aggressive key assumptions on growth. That is what you can see in many countries, but particularly in emerging markets, it's even more so, making a huge difference. Do you mind if we ask, you know, maybe open up the floor for questions? Just be mindful
Yes,
of time. There's a couple. Yeah.
Yes, I have one additional and last slide. Can
Okay,
you?
sure. Yeah.
present?
Okay, let's summarize them and
Before
conclude
I
one slide.
come back to your
Absolutely.
question.
Thank you.
Okay. So looking forward, we observe some key major trends that we think will shape the city work streams in the future in Vietnam, especially in Vietnam. Yeah, for now, according to observation, we think that the data-driven analysis, market intelligence analysis in here is a must in Vietnam, rather than the helicopter or qualitative review before. Yeah, addressing all the full scope of the CD, from the market sizing, competition landscaping, to the review of key assumption and business plans. Yeah, the second point, the second section and third section mainly related to the commercial aspect. That means for now, as you may know, we have young population and high internet penetration. And for now in Vietnam, we are required by our clients, mainly the buy side, to assess the target capability to leverage the technologies, AI, or ecosystem of data or partner to grow their business and deliver the KPIs. Yeah, because we have very young and tech-savvy consumer, and their purchasing behavior has shifted from the traditional to the modern jets landscape. So this is the common request we receive from our clients. And the third one is that we are the most open economy in the regions with around 16 FTAs between Vietnam and many countries and regions in the world. So we are highly impacted by the global events like trade barriers or geopolitical instability. And in most of our CDD work stream, we have to assess the impact of this kind of global events on the target business plans. Yeah. And the third one is that in the context of the market volatility, we usually have to conduct the scenario-based analysis and modeling. Yeah, covering both the macro and global and macro volatility and market challenge or disruptions. Yeah, and this review of the commercial aspect have our clients, mainly the buy side, to formulate to get an in-depth understanding of the commercial risk faced by the target company, and also to develop their own plans to create value post mergers, and also prepare for the exits later on. So that means we support them not only during the CDD assignment during the deal, but also some implication for the board's deal. Okay. So that's all for my presentation. Thank you, Christopher.
Thank you so much. I just want to be mindful of your time and obviously time of attendees, but thank you for a very important subject and contribution to the discussion. Are there any questions from the audience on, how to analyze, the Vietnamese market from a commercial perspective? Because I think it is really very much the basis and foundation for assessing the future outlook of a business, right? You can look at past numbers, financial numbers, whether they're reliable or not. Still, the future outlook, I think, of a business so important, driven by, commercial due diligence. So I think that's very important to look into. And I think it ties also very well to very first speaker, Yusuke, on this is what, Japanese acquirers are looking for, right? Growth, new markets, and that you can find out in commercial due diligence. Any questions from the audience? But then let's stop. Thank you so much, Lei Chung Dong, for the presentation. I enjoyed it very much. Thank you everybody for joining sort of the webinar on making M&A deals happening sort of in Vietnam. For those of you who want to do more and interact more, I mean, let's connect. Let's also jump on other events that we organize, just in case you have time, you're interested in meeting other people, continuing the dialogue. We have a couple of more opportunities come up. There's more webinars come up that we will share with you. There's one on M&A in uncertain times that we expect that mid of April, things have not drastically changed by then. On another webinar on M&A in uncertain times, we'll share the invite with you. Then we've got also a post-merger integration conference happening in Singapore on May the 20th, so you can actually even meet in person. We've got M&A trainings going on in Singapore. We've got valuation webinar with Aswat Daudaran, good dear friend of ours, the Dean of Valuation, on how you can beat your bots in AI and valuation and business in general. And also we would do virtual trainings with him, but also on-site trainings with him this year. So happy to share these if there's of interest to you. We'll circulate also invitations. So thank you everyone for joining. There's also other team members that are obviously available to you if you want to. We will share the materials also with you, and those who have missed it and those who've just joined the replay. Thank you very much for joining as well. and we look very much forward for seeing you again in one of the other webinars or in-person events that we organize. Thank you so much also to our speakers for their contribution and preparing their presentation and asking the questions, and also the participants here. Thank you very much and have a good afternoon and evening.